middle management is the hardest job in any organization. Because when you're junior, your only job is really to do your job. That's it. And you get trained how to do your job. I mean, you all have to be licensed and go to school and learn how to do the job of being an accountant. And if you're really good at it, you eventually get promoted. And you eventually get promoted to a position where you're now responsible for the people who do the job you used to do. But the problem is they don't give us any training how to do that. You know? And senior people are thinking about entirely different things. They're thinking about the firm, they're thinking about strategy. And the problem is, so you have this middle group that's in this sort of weird mix where they have to be strategic but not majority strategic, and they have to be tactical but they're not majority tactical, and they have to translate what's going up here to down there and down here to up here, and most things break in the middle. Because I'll meet firms where the leadership's amazing and they're visionary and they care about people and they want to do the right thing, and then I go down to the front line and they're like, yeah, this place is the worst. And so I'm like, what happened between here and there? And it's the middle. Most things break in the middle. And so I think there are two factors. One is we don't train people how to lead, right? So as I said before, when we're junior, we have to know what to do. We just do our jobs, we have to be good at it. And as we become leaders in this middle management, we're now transitioning to this job. We're now responsible for the people who do the job we used to do, but nobody is teaching us listening. Nobody's teaching us communication skills. Nobody's teaching us effective confrontation. Nobody's teaching us how to give and receive feedback. Nobody's actually teaching us leadership. So this is why we get managers and not leaders. And like, you would never ask somebody to do anything in accounting without showing them how to do it, ever. Bad idea, right? So why on earth do we think that we can just promote someone to a leadership position and expect that they know what to do without showing them how to do it? So that's problem number one, is the total vacuum in some cases, or just really minimal amounts of leadership training. And it needs to be robust. The other problem that I come across very often is I get some really wonderful self-taught leaders in middle management. They're reading books, they're going to conferences themselves, they're watching TED Talks. I mean, they're students of leadership, they have mentors. I mean, they're really making a go of it, and they complain that the senior management, all they care about is the quarterly earnings. And so the problem we have there is they're trying so hard to do the right thing, but management really doesn't care. So that's the opposite, right? And in those cases, I generally recommend that the right thing to do, I mean, quitting is always an option, but that's not necessarily the best option or the first option. But I always recommend to be the leader you wish you had, which is, I get the question, it is one of the, if not the most common question I get, which is, what do I do when I'm trying to do the right thing and my boss or my boss's boss or my boss's boss's boss just don't get it, you know? All they care about is money before people. And the answer is you can't control what you can't control. So worry about the people around you. Worry about the people to the sides of you, a level below you, even a level above you, and you be the leader you wish you had. And what you start to find in those pockets is these magical little diamonds in the rough appear. We worked with a large technology company, and we worked with a group where that's exactly what we did. We developed this whole leadership thing just for this little group in the middle. And yes, they started to do better, and their numbers went better, and the group expanded, and blah, 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 all the things you'd expect to happen. But one thing we didn't expect is that the phone started ringing off the hook from other people in the firm asking, can I get a job in your group? Because when the people who worked in this group would go out for lunch with their friends who worked in other groups, you know, how's work today? Amazing.
Different stories, right?
Different stories. And all of a sudden, word spread across this 80,000 person company. And this is only a group of 150 people. Word spread across this 80,000 person company that everybody was trying to get into this group just because they wanted to work in it, because you had good leadership.
When I was writing Leaders Eat Last, I got to the point where I couldn't do it. It was too difficult. I couldn't organize all the information. It was just too complicated. I couldn't do it, and I'd been trying for months. I probably missed multiple deadlines. And I was sitting at my computer, and I decided that I had to give up. I couldn't do it. And so I got up and went for a walk, and I was literally planning my exit. I was going through the steps. I was going through the checklist of quitting. I knew that I'd have to give my advance back to the publisher, because technically I'm in breach. I knew that I would be humiliated, but I was preparing myself for it, and that I would get over it. I was also rationalizing that it was okay to quit. I told myself there are thousands, 10,000 books published every single year. No one will miss this one book. And I literally went through the steps to prepare myself for what I had to do to quit. I'm not sure why I did this, but I called a friend of mine who at the time was in the Air Force Special Forces, and I don't even think I said hello when he picked up the phone. I simply asked the question, what do you do when you can't complete the mission? And as is his habit, he just started telling me a story. He was a helicopter pilot, and they had a mission in Afghanistan that was a suicide mission. All the intelligence showed that the air defenses were just too great, and none of them were going to come out alive. And it wasn't going to be one of those kill Hitler missions where we're all going to die, but we'll kill Hitler. This is like, we're all going to die, and the mission will also fail. And he was preparing his helicopter for this mission, and his wingman turned to him and said, what do we do? We've got wives, we've got kids. Do we refuse to go? What do we do? And my friend turned to him and he said, this is what we signed up for. We go. He asked me, he said, is this book more or less powerful than Start With Why? I said, the research has impacted me greater. It's more powerful. He says, all right, I'm going to tell you a funny story. Before I met you, I'd become disillusioned with the Air Force and I was going to quit. And I found this kooky little book called Start With Why, and it completely re-inspired me. And I decided to stay, and I'm a better leader now than I was before because of that book. And if you're saying that this book is more powerful than the first one, then we need this book. He said, this is what you signed up for. You have no choice. Clearly his mission was scrapped at the last minute. The underlying message of this is what you signed up for, you have no choice, wasn't a mean message. The underlying message was, and I will be here with you. The underlying message was, no matter what, you can call me at any time. I've got your back. And that's the important part. I turned around, went back to my desk, and finished writing that book. Not that night. I mean, it took me months, but I never thought of quitting ever again. As soon as I knew that someone was there, someone had my back. There's too much debate about what's the difference between vision and mission, right? There's no standardized definitions of these things. Some people have one of them, some people have both of them. Nobody is sure which one goes first. And I'm not willing to step into that debate. I think it's silly. And so I believe in the just cause, which is this affirmative statement of a future state that does not yet exist that I will commit my business to help build, right? You can call it vision if you want, but I like the term just cause because it holds a higher standard. It's a cause so just that I would be willing to sacrifice for it. Sacrifice could mean turning down a client. That's free money. It could, because they don't believe what I believe. Sacrifice could mean spending time away from my family. It could mean taking business trips. It could mean turning down a job somewhere else that could pay me more money because I want to do this. I believe in this. And if any of you have vision statements for your businesses, if you have a just cause, a cause so just that your people would sacrifice for it, I have a test. It's a very simple test of 3 things that if you can pass all these 3 things, you have a vision, you have a just cause worthy of playing in the infinite game, right? So I'll run through them quickly, then I'll explain them. Your vision, your just cause must be resilient, it must be inclusive, and it must be service-oriented. Okay, so resilient means that your vision, your just cause, can withstand cultural, political, or technological change, right? Which means when I hear people say, to be the best technology, well, that's not going to sustain through technological change. Think about how many businesses went like this simply because the internet was invented, right? So it has to, your cause has to be written in terms that is durable, that is resilient through technological, political, and and cultural change. That's number one. Number two, it has to be inclusive, which means it's the very words that you choose are an invitation to those who believe what you believe, whether they're internal or external, right? They're an invitation to anyone who wants to contribute to what you believe. So for example, if you talk about to build the best travel website, let's just say, right? That means the only people who would want to volunteer to be a part of it are people who build travel websites, or people who build websites. That means if you're an accountant, if you're somebody in back office, if you're somewhere in the support, you've literally made me feel like a second-class citizen in my own company, right? So it has to be written in terms that anybody, no matter what job they play, feels like they could contribute directly to that cause. So it has to be inclusive. And the third one is my favorite one, is it has to be service-oriented. In all relationships, there's always a benefactor and a contributor and a benefactor. So if I go to my boss for advice, career advice, I expect that her advice to me will benefit me, right? I want to be the benefactor of that contribution. If they're giving me advice, if she only gives me advice that benefits her career, well, that means the primary benefit of her advice was her, not me. So service orientation means that the primary benefit goes to those other than the contributor. So if you're the leader, that means the primary benefit of leadership has to go to those other than the leader themselves. You cannot make decisions to enrich yourself. You have to make decisions to help those that you lead. Now, you absolutely can make money, you can absolutely have ambition, those things are fine, but not as the primary benefit, right? A salesperson cannot make a sale simply to drive their own bonus. They have to make the sale to help the person get what they're trying to buy. The primary benefit. If you're an investor, the primary benefit of your investment has to go to someone other than yourself, i.e. the company you're investing in. And if you're the company, the primary benefit of one of your company's sales, the primary benefit has to go to those other than the contributor, which is yourself, means it has to go to the customer, it has to go to the client. So your vision statement needs to pass all those steps.
First of all, you have to know what the definition of introversion and extroversion are, right? Socially awkward is not, I know socially awkward extroverts, right? It's not if you're uncomfortable, it's not social awkwardness, that's not introversion. I like, in terms of, it's Susan Cain's definition, it's about energy, which is an introvert loses energy from social interaction, an extrovert gains energy from social interaction. Right. So an introvert wakes up in the morning with 5 coins, every social interaction they spend a coin, at the end they are depleted. An extrovert wakes up with no coins, every social interaction they get a coin, and by the end they feel rich. Like going to a party, they gives them energy, versus going to a party sucks your energy.
So
right?
Then I'm an introvert.
Right. So I'm a big introvert, right? Yeah. And what I have learned is I have a big personality, but I'm still an introvert. So what I've learned is that it doesn't matter which one you are, the question is how do you leverage what you got, right? And so I go to parties with an extrovert, right? Because that way they can do all the talking and I can just stand there and just eat the cheese. And
that is fantastic.
By the way, you can always spot me, you can always tell, you go to a party with me and you will see me standing in corners or lingering by and when there's a barbecue, I'm always the chef, because then I don't have to talk to anybody, right? But if you notice, I've learned to leverage what I have. So it makes me a much better public speaker to be an introvert, because I don't like holding court. It freaks me out. But I like talking to individuals. So you'll notice when I speak, I talk to you, and then I talk to you, and then I talk to you, and I give everybody a whole idea or a whole thought, which actually, what I learned, helps me actually connect with an audience much better. But it's because I'm an introvert. So if you're an introvert, of course you can be a leader. It has nothing to do. Some of the best leaders, have you ever heard of Jim Senegal? Most people haven't, because he's awkward and shy. He's a phenomenal leader. He's the founder and former CEO of Costco, right? Like, there's phenomenal leaders. Richard Branson, introvert. He's really awkward, right? Like, these are phenomenal leaders who are all introverts. Right? But the one thing they all have in common, whether you're extroverted or introvert, is undying belief in your cause. Right? And the charisma is not how much energy you have. The charisma is how much you're willing to devote to that.